What's going on, guys? Aaron here, aka Cyber Sensei. Welcome back to day 6 of the TryHackMe Advent 2024. Today's a pretty interesting one. We're going to be going back to the blue side of things. We're going to be looking at how to analyze malware behavior using sandbox tools. We're going to learn a little bit about YARA rules and why they're used. We're going to learn some malware evasion techniques, and we're going to implement an evasion technique to bypass YARA rule detection. So it's going to be a pretty interesting one today. So first off, what we're going to do is going to dive into it here. Going to read the story so we're up to date on what's happening. So let's get into it. Mayor Malware was scheming, quite full of delight, to ruin SOCMIS and frighten SOC teams, but Glitch and McSkitty had spoiled his plan by uncovering secrets that exposed the man. So Mayor Malware slammed his hand on the table, his eyes narrowing as the report flashed on his screen. Glitch and McSkitty had uncovered his trail. He took a deep breath, calming himself. No matter, he muttered, a sinister grin forming. They have found me, but haven't stopped me. His confidence stemmed from the malware he had crafted, so devious and advanced that it would easily evade detection. But before unleashing it to wreak havoc on SOC teams and ruin SOCMIS, there was one final step. He needed to test it in a sandbox. Boom. So that's what we're doing today. We're doing some malware analysis. Sweet. So the first thing that we're talking about here is how sandboxes can be detected, right? So typically when you're on a Windows instance, you'll have this directory right here, which tells you the current version of the Windows that the OS is on presently on the endpoint that you're looking at. So with sandboxes, this will not exist most of the time. And so that's how we can determine whether it's a sandbox or an actual instance of Windows and an endpoint. And what we do and how we do that is we check the registry key, which you can see here. This is how every registry key is prefixed with. And whether or not this exists will tell us whether or not we are in a sandbox. So if it exists, we are not in sandbox. If it doesn't exist, then we are in a sandbox. And that's what Mayor Malware is doing here. He's running a query to check if this exists before the malware executes, because if you're in the sandbox and it executes, then that means that it's not really going to do much, right? And it could be someone analyzing how it works to create detection rules so that it won't work in the future. So moving forward, we can look at a C program here that is developed to check the registry key. You can see here the path and the value name. So it's not really important to understand what every single part of this code does, but what's important is to understand why or what this is doing, which essentially what it's doing is, so that's pretty much what that does. Introduction to YARA here. So what is YARA? Well, it's a tool that's used to identify and classify malware based on like behaviors, strings, file headers, etc. And a lot of blue teams and analysts use this to be able to make sure malware is not being ran on endpoints. So this is a small script that Mayor Malware wrote in order to test whether or not his malware would be detected. So you can see here, it's a rule. We have the description, the author, the date, the version, the strings. So we're looking for, so what this parameter checks for is it's checking to see if these strings exist in whatever command is being run. So for example, if we ran the malware as it is now, like if we ran this script right here, it would be detected because we can read that this is in there and this is in there, and that matches right here what we're looking for. No case just means that it doesn't matter if it's uppercase or lowercase. It's going to put everything into lowercase or everything into uppercase and compare it. That way you don't have to worry about case sensitivity. And so moving into the PowerShell, what we're going to do here is we're actually going to see how this would work in real time. So if you haven't already, make sure you start up your machines. You know how to do this already. You just go here to start machine. We're just going to be using the actual machine for this room today because it's a Windows instance. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to it, start up our PowerShell, make sure we are in admin. So you can see here we are, and then we're going to navigate to the tools directory. So how we do that is CD, type the directory you want to go to. So on Windows, typically the directories are with a /, but PowerShell works with both, so it doesn't really matter. I just prefer backslashes because Linux. So now what we want to do is see what's in the tools directory. So how we do that is ls. So you can see here we got floss, we got malware, and we got a bunch of other stuff. We got some YARA rules, we got the jinglebells.ps1 and YARA matches.txt. Alright, so what we want to do now is we want to see if our YARA rule that malware made is working. So what we're going to do here is we're going to run the malware by going to this directory here and double clicking on merrychristmas.exe. First we want to run the jinglebells.ps1 script, because you can see here. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. That is going to make sure we are monitoring. What this actually does here is going to be monitoring with that YARA rule continuously. So if anything is run containing those two strings, it'll give us a pop-up. So we'll go ahead and run that. And you can see that no events were found, which is good. It means there's nothing that was executed. So we're going to go ahead and run the malware now. Alright, so we'll go to navigate to there, tools, malware, and run that. Alright, looks like it ran. Boom, there you can see we caught it. So we've ran the malware, it contained those two strings, and the YARA rule caught it, and we got our pop-up with the flag. So we'll go ahead and put that in. That is the first answer in this room. So glitch was here. Boom. Alright, back to it. So we've run it, the pop-up came up, everything's working, going according to plan. Malware is now going to try to evade this rule. So what he's going to do is he's going to encode his command. So this is a basic obfuscation technique that a lot of malware will use. They will encode or encrypt their code so that the rules can't detect anything, right? Because now if we ran this script, by the way, this is the same exact script we saw earlier, right? The only difference is we've now encoded the command that we want to run in base 64. So now what happens is if we ran this, the YARA rule would not detect it because those strings are not present anymore, right? So if we go back up here, these strings are not present anymore, which means it can't detect it now, because what the rule is basing the detection off of is if these two strings exist. So now this will be completely undetected. And so what they show us here is what the obfuscation is, right? So if we decoded it from base 64, it would be this, and boom, you can see those strings are there now, right? So floss is a tool which can be used to get deobfuscate code inside malware. So you can see here we're running it, and let's go ahead and do that, right? Let's go ahead and follow along. So we'll just hit OK on this. We will clear, or we'll hit Control C to exit out of the detection. and then we're going to type clear screen. So CLS is clear screen to get all that stuff off our screen. And then what we want to do is floss.exe, and let's see. Alright, so we're going to run that. Alright, we're analyzing. Just to go over what this command does, we are running floss.exe. This is the input the exe takes, right? So we're inputting this file into floss.exe, and then a pipe, what that means is essentially it's how you do multiple commands in one line, right? So we're doing this command first and then we're doing this command, and that's how pipe works, right? It's always going to run the leftmost command first, and it's going to be in that order, right? So if we had this over here and this over here, we would run this one first, but it wouldn't make sense because what we do is just create an empty file and then run this. So that's why we're doing it this way. So basically what this command says is run this floss.exe on this file right here, merrychristmas.exe, and then create a file called mousestring.txt in our current directory and put the output of whatever's in here in here. So it is finished. It took 52.25 seconds. So let's go ahead and get the content of our mousestring.txt. And you can see a bunch of stuff in there. So let's go see if we can find the strings in here. I saw it when it was going down. So no. Oh, here's something. Yep, here it is right here. And a flag. That's cool. So you can see it got our text out of the encoded part of the program. So let's go ahead and go back here to see what they say. The YARA rules are becoming a pain to malware's backside. If he wants his malware to be undetectable, he needs to research how YARA rules can be used to stop them. For example, research tells him that YARA rules can also be used to check sysmon logs for any artifacts left by malware. He'll need to test this as well. So here, what we're doing is we're looking at how YARA rules and sysmon logs go hand in hand, right? So what we're doing here is we're pretty much adding event ID to our YARA rule, and we're doing event ID 1, which is process created. And essentially what this is going to do is it's going to trigger on a process created for those and containing those two strings that we saw earlier. We're going to look at this file here. Before we do that, I'm going to write down the flag just so we don't have to go through that again. So it's thm hidden clue. Boom. There we go. And here is another room if you guys wanted to go through and do a little bit more analysis like this. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and go through this part right here. So we're gonna get content on the YARA matches.txt. So first of all, clear screen, get content YARA. There we go. All right, so we have. Okay, so this is what they're basically trying to tell us, right? We detected the malware when it was ran, and it gave us an event ID record and an event ID because this came from the sysmon log recording system that Windows has. So all they're doing here is they're going over to sysmon, which is this icon right here. We're going to applications, Microsoft, Windows, and then we're going to look for sysmon in here, which it's SY, so it should be towards the bottom. Boom, there we go, operational. And we'll open this up again. And then what we want to do is we want to get a filter. So we'll do filter current log, and we'll go to XML. Okay, edit query manually, yes. And then right under here, we're going to do I'm gonna do system and guys, syntax is super critical with anything, so just make sure you have it down correctly before you try to run, or else it's not gonna work. So event record ID is equal, most likely equal to this string right here, and then we're gonna close that off. Should be 2 squares, yeah. Alright, so what we need to do is get our PowerShell back up, and we'll look at 127.962. So let's look at that one. 127.962. Okay. So here's the log. You can see right here the command line is exactly what we were monitoring for, and here's the ID. You can make sure. Yep, that matches right there. And we got a bunch of other information. And that's how you would go and look at this inside Sysmon. So to recap, guys, pretty interesting event we had here today. Read this ending note here. Mayor Malware leaned back, tapping his fingers thoughtfully on the table. All of this research had revealed an unsettling truth. His malware, as cunning as it was, wasn't yet ready for the wild. There were too many tools and too many vigilant eyes. Analysts armed with YARA rules, Sysmon, and a host of detection techniques that could expose his creation before it even had the chance to spread. He clenched his fists, a determined glint in his eye. Just a little more fine-tuning, he murmured. He would study, adapt, and evolve his malware until it was truly undetectable. When the time was right, he would unleash it upon the unsuspecting SOC teams, striking when they least expected it. But for now, he would wait, watching, planning. And he was perfecting his craft in the shadows. Recap, guys, what we learned today was how YARA rules work, what they look like, how to see if we're in a sandbox or in a real Windows OS endpoint, and then also how we can use the floss tool to catch obfuscated strings in a piece of software, or just malware, or whatever exe you're dealing with. And then we saw how to see the event based on the event record ID in Sysmon and what that looks like, so you could see it from both sides. I appreciate you guys stopping by. This has been another Advent. If you enjoyed, leave a like. If you want to follow along, subscribe. And if you think this would benefit someone, send it over to 1 or 2 friends. And yeah, guys, as always, I appreciate you guys. And this is Aaron. Peace.